Hey folks, everything new under the sun is Bible prophecy being fulfilled today is the Bible repeating? Are there patterns in the Bible that present prophecy? Now, traditionally for Jews, pattern equals prophecy, and things happen over and over again in the Bible. This is an interesting story about maybe the Lord is bringing some shaking to the earth. Are the Muslim structures on the Temple Mount falling down? Now, we know about, obviously, the Turkish earthquake here. And we see in this image the fault lines. So the Turkish earthquake was just kind of where that arrow is, that vertical arrow, generally about there, I think a little bit to the left of that. You can see that the fault line goes down to the Dead Sea through Jerusalem there off the bottom. Is there a great earthquake that happens in Jerusalem? Well, yes, there is. I'm going to take a look at that in a second. Arab media reported on Tuesday that pieces of mosaics containing anti-Christian verses were from the Quran began falling off the facade of the Dome of the Rock. So there's pieces of the Dome of the Rock that have anti-Christian messages, and they're falling off. So here is, just mute that. So what he's showing there are basically little pieces of the mosaic that have fallen off. The mosaics on the interior of the Dome of the Rock are a Quranic rejection of the divinity of Jesus. You can see bits there, and there's other sections of it that are falling. And interestingly, this building has been affected by earthquakes in the past. It says the building was severely damaged by earthquakes in 808 BC and again in 846. The dome collapsed in an earthquake in 1015 and was rebuilt in 1022 to 1023. The mosaics on the drum were repaired in 1027-28. The earthquakes of 1033 resulted in the introduction of wooden beams to enforce the Dome of the Rock. Parts of the Dome of the Rock collapsed during the 1927 earthquake, July 11th, 1927, and the walls were left badly cracked. So that's interesting that things have happened, obviously, related to the Dome of the Rock and earthquakes of the past. And is that occurring again? And it's interesting that it kind of relates to the earthquake there and a great shaking that is coming upon the world. Now, did something like this happen in the past? Well, I'll bring to your attention in 1 Samuel 5, it speaks of the Philistines who got after battle the Ark of the Covenant and took it from the Jews, from Israel. When the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early in the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen. So this statue, this god, this fake thing, had fallen on its face before the Ark of God, which is interesting, right? And they took Dagon and set him up in his place. So they set their fake god back up in the temple, which had the ark close by. And when they arose early on the morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. So God was bringing a great shaking, causing this false god, this icon, this statue of Dagon, to fall on its face in front of the people. Did they learn their lesson? Of course not. And the palms of its hands were cut off upon the threshold. So of Dagon's hands were cut off. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. So where there are false gods, God brings a shaking. Even so much to the point where the false gods and these statues fall over and even worship, in this case, the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Lord out of 1 Samuel 5. Again, is this a great shaking in Turkey? It's interesting. And is anybody learning anything from it? I hope they are. But if you look at these images, these are all along the same fault lines that go down to Jerusalem. And there is shaking all over that fault line. here is, it's not a very big image of it, but I think you get the idea. And I think it was BP Earthwatch that showed the same. Here is a look at, again, the fault line in Turkey. And all those little orange dots up and down are all earthquakes that are occurring one after the other and have been. And going down even near into Syria. You can see Syria at the bottom there. Again, and that fault line goes directly, there's a pipeline directly to Jerusalem. So that's pretty interesting. Does the Bible speak about an earthquake happening in Jerusalem at any point in time? And we know that these fault lines are all connected, obviously, and earthquakes kind of flow up and down them as the plates shift and move. Well, there is a great earthquake coming, greater than any one that has ever been on this earth. And it's when Jesus sets his feet on the Mount of Olives. Zechariah chapter 14 says, then, let's see, behold, the day of the Lord. Is this speaking of the millennial reign of Christ, when he brings his wrath? Behold, the day of the Lord cometh. What is the day of the Lord? Well, we refer to that as the Sabbath, the day of rest, the seventh day. The day of the Lord cometh, and spoil shall be divided in the midst of you. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, the houses rifled, and the woman ravaged, and half of the city shall go into captivity, and the resident of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And, verse 4, this is the important part, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave. That means it shall split in two, in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall move northward, shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. There's a great earthquake coming, and God, just like in 1 Samuel, will cause the statues and the false gods and these icons to fall flat on their face, including man and everything man puts faith in, including concrete buildings. All these things will fall on their face. The buildings will fall. The people will fall on their face. The statues will fall on their face. Dagon and every other false religion will fall on its face when the Lord sets his feet on the Mount of Olives. Everybody at that point will know. So is it prophetic that mosaics are falling down in the Dome of the Rock, which happen to be related to anti-Christian verses and denying the divinity of Jesus? The mosaics on the interior of the Dome of the Rock are a Quranic rejection of the divinity of Jesus. Jesus is patient. God is patient, but his wrath will come and justice will be served. And I think just like in 1 Samuel 5, maybe we're seeing the initiation of that, a great shaking coming upon the land.